What's up, guys? It is Matt Jackson, and welcome to episode 2 of the BrandUP Your Business Podcast. I got one of my good friends, Bob. We've known each other for a few years in the pressure washing industry, met through mastermind groups, and see each other here and there at conferences. So he has a pressure washing business based out of Cleveland, Ohio area, and we kind of have a similar story. So let me kick it off to Bob here and introduce him, and let him tell you the story, and we'll go from there.
Well, yeah, first off, thanks for having me. You've been a great resource, somebody I've looked forward to or looked up to kind of in the early years, in the pivotal years, but I guess I'll kind of kick things off and we'll take a deep dive. My background, I would say, and how I got into the pressure washing business is pretty unconventional. It's a pretty unique story, came with its own challenges. But I guess I'll just dive right in. So I was born in 85, grew up in a affluent suburban community of Cleveland called Mentor, Ohio. Grew up in a nice neighborhood on the cul-de-sac, went to the Catholic schools, and kind of growing up in that environment, I think the one takeaway that really stands out looking back is just the conformity. Everything has a label. You don't want to stand out too much. You want to fit in. You want to be accepted, and you kind of want to just march along the path that society has you aligned with. So in many cases, that path is, you go to a decent high school, maybe you play a little sports, you go to university so you could get a better job. And that's kind of what everybody's focused on. I was a unique kid. I had some really strong interests. I wasn't a sitting still type of guy. I really found fascination with the military, with adventure, with airplanes, with these types of things. And ever since a very young age, I wanted to do something like be on a SWAT team, fly a fighter jet, go join the Marines. I think if you took a time machine back to childhood Bob and you said, hey, one day you're going to own a cleaning company, you probably won't want to be near that temper tantrum.
Yeah.
So we could kind of go forward, went to high school, got into the University of Dayton. When I went to my university visits, really liked the community, the atmosphere, just seemed like the right fit. So I went in undecided. Knew in the back of my mind I wanted to be in the military, and with a college degree, it opened up opportunities to become a pilot, therefore being an officer. And sophomore year, I kind of selected the major of engineering technology, specifically in manufacturing. I chose that while most of my friends were in the business school just because when it came to the whole business idea, the images that stood out was like office space, being in a cubicle.
True.
Nothing about that really seemed interesting, so I wanted something hands-on. So fast forward a little bit, went to Marine officer training for a variety of reasons. It didn't go the way I liked. I was trying to reapply to that, but didn't really cross paths. So when I graduated in 2008, we all know what happened back then.
Right.
I tried really hard to fall back on my major. And after getting kicked in the face so many times, I found a job doing kind of valve product design, research and development. Did that for 4 years. Ended up taking a job away in Tucson once I got bored. Had a job working with aircraft cabins where I got to travel and ultimately moved back home to Cleveland in 2015, where I wanted to buy a house, kind of plant roots, be close to family. And upon getting into this house on an engineer's salary, I'm in my early 30s. I quickly found out that the money coming in and the money going out, be it a home repair, a project, and then being in your early 30s, everybody's getting married. So you have that, you have bachelor parties. I constantly was playing tug of war with my savings account, with my credit cards, and you'd hear the old school, "Well, you should stop getting that Starbucks and listen to Dave Ramsey and quit going to Chipotle." But
Yeah.
none of that really worked. So one time, what I'll consider a discovery moment, I was at the gym on the treadmill and I was just giving it hell. I had my adrenaline going, my heart rate was up, and it's almost like this divine voice came in my head where it said, you could either whine like a bitch and be a victim, or you could do something.
Nice.
So, immune to all the judgment and the social media comments and what people might think, I made a post on the community Rocky River page that I was willing to do spring cleanouts. and do flower bed mulching, pull weeds. Pulling weeds was my first job. I made 200 bucks, probably 8 to 10 hours worth of work. I thought it was great,
Heck yeah.
but that was the genesis. The other thing that people really seemed to bite on these posts was pressure washing. Now, when I moved into this house, my parents were going through a divorce, so they were liquidating a lot of their furniture, a lot of their yard equipment. And one of the items I got was this red Honda pressure washer.
Oh,
And
cool.
I remember I even I let a friend borrow that even before I thought of using it as a business tool, and I got it back broken. So one thing is I looked up videos on how to repair it, opening the thing, replacing the cam, and I think almost having that aha, I fixed it, it gave me a sense of can do. So that summer in 2017, when all this happened, power wash jobs and a junk removal, I made 5,200. So I thought at the time it was great money. I thought that there was momentum with that. And my main takeaway was I took action. So I was doing everything that people make fun of on those like Facebook groups. I was up on a ladder, just blasting away the algae from
Yeah.
siding. I thought that it was just a huge deal and a huge upgrade to buy the Lowe's $70 rotary disc.
I remember having one of those too, where you have to like
Yeah,
quick connect it onto your wand and lance.
exactly.
And then it ends up blowing up after like two or three driveways, and you're like, man, this is not sustainable.
Right. I remember like doing 2 days on a driveway with that, but
Yeah.
that summer passed and winter came, and one thing I think that was pivotal was I took some time and I joined some communities and I had mentors. I talked to a guy, James, who runs a real successful business out of Texas. Another guy, Patrick, who now he's switched and is in manufacturing. And I even caught up with Michael Hinderleiter, the owner of PowerWash.com, and I learned a lot from these people. And I ended up buying a 4 gallon a minute unit to use the next season. So I more than doubled how much I made and kind of learned and I kind of grew. And then 2019, I got talking to Mike Kilgore. He was really a big voice and an advocate for driveway sealing, paver sealing. I actually attended one of his workshops outside of Tampa that spring and applied the knowledge not only with the processes, but I learned, kind of how to sell, how to engage with the customer, how to properly use a CRM, which saved me a lot of time because before I was just using a Word document and editing all this stuff. It was pretty time consuming.
Oh yeah.
And that was took me to 2019. And at the time, I still just had an idea. I didn't think that this would be a actual replacement of income. I still was stuck in that conformity thinking. I thought being an engineer was a good, respectable job to have. That's what everybody was saying. And some of the other contractors I met, you had some rougher guys, some people who weren't as focused on business, a lot of recovering addicts.
Hmm.
So I kind of had this negative archetype in my brain that was preventing me from thinking of this as going all in. So 2019, I got laid off from the company I was at. And mind you, rewinding a little bit, the time in corporate America, working as an engineer, I came in with these great intentions, working with aerospace companies, SpaceX. And a lot of times over time, I just saw more of the involvement and what was gauged in these companies, not even by what you're doing to drive bottom line or creativity. It was an atmosphere of perception. The one company I was working with at the time had guy who didn't seem to really have much going on, who was working, 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. And then these younger guys would get out of college with the loans and they were coming in every Saturday. And soon that was kind of being pushed from the top down as the culture.
Hmm.
So the controller of the company would send out an Excel sheet and he would list everybody by name in the department and it would show how many hours you worked that you had to log. So you were on salary, but people were saying they were working 70 hours a week. So I feel like that was putting pressure. Oh, you're here 40 hours, you're doing the bare minimum. So all in all, there was an internal conflict. I just felt like this is kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
You're giving more of your time away, you're not doing anything to the bottom line. I'm impressing people or trying to impress people who frankly aren't paying my bills, don't give a shit about me, and this is stupid.
No
So
doubt.
I kind of was a minimalist in some of those situations. I found ways to skate by. So I lost that job as part of a big Boeing layoff. Well, because Boeing had problems with the 737 MAX and their major supplier.
Hmm.
I took a slimy headhunter job from a smaller, manufacturing foundry outfit. I was let go without reason. And then COVID happened, and I kind of mentally had the rug pulled out from me during COVID. I wasn't about making big business moves. I thought we were more disaster preparedness.
Hmm.
I made less money in 2020 than I did in 2019, and I kind of fell back on the safe route, a engineering company hour away from my house, working on circuit boards. Decent job, but I was scared. I accepted an offer with a lot less vacation than I would take, just 1 week. Um, and during this time period, something happened actually where I met you. So I was kind of set out on a quest for knowledge to understand how somebody could take this business model from something that's just a job, just an owner operator, to being what the E-Myth talks about, a business with systems that works for you, that you don't work for. So I came across a coach. Hindsight, I don't necessarily align with said coach, but we don't need to talk about this. I met yourself. I met other guys in Kentucky, the firemen. I met people who like look just like me. They like guys my age. We all hung out, and that kind of rewrote the script of how I thought about this business. And I decided, exactly 1 year into that last job, I was going to go full time into this. So, April 14th, 2021, day I'll call personally Judgment Day, I gave my
Yeah.
notice. Nervous, the butterflies, meeting with my boss in the conference room. And believe it or not, you know what he said to me? He wasn't talking about moving away from a great opportunity. I'll never forget this conversation. He said, I'm 55 years old, and part of me is kind of jealous that I
Yeah.
never took an opportunity. I play softball with a guy doing this on the opposite side of town. He just bought a new Corvette.
That's it. It's funny what we like, the lies we tell ourselves, and then when we listen to somebody else and you're brave enough to make that jump and they give you respect, as opposed to you think that, oh, he's my boss, he's going to tell me I'm going to fail and the only option is what I'm currently in. So it's
So yeah, I ended on good terms. I gave him 3 weeks notice.
nice.
Made sure that we ended well. But the funny thing about that, here's the kicker. If I took what the boomer generation calls the safe, prestigious role,
Yeah.
so picture this. I go in Cinco de Mayo, go figure, my last day in corporate America, May 6th, my first full-time day.
Hmm.
I remember just driving out to the opposite side of town, working on a paver patio, just like picture the perfect day, 75, partly cloudy, getting coffee on my time. I'm thinking this is great.
Yep.
It's a week after my last day at said company, and three people still at that company, they reach out to me via Facebook Messenger. That company had a huge layoff just due to the semiconductor industry. So the corporate had decided they had to have a reduction in headcount
Yep.
to make up for margins.
Hmm.
And that layoff was calculated by corporate, so it had nothing to do with performance.
Hmm.
And based upon some of the parameters that were shared with me, that was based on seniority. So it's with certainty that had I stayed at the safe road, I would have been canned. So that would have been three jobs in a 2 year period. Just imagine
Yep.
what that would do to my ego trying to stay into that field.
Especially if you didn't have a backup plan. Like it seems like you had something built up where you could have just, if whether it was on your intention or the company laying off based upon like the economy constraints, like you were able to fall into something that is how you're successful today. So like imagine not having that opportunity and then having to go back on LinkedIn and having a job search and having to take maybe an offer that's not ideal, but it kind of
Ugh.
floats your bills.
I mean, yeah, I've been there. I don't wish that on anybody. It's
Yeah.
very humbling. And I think some of the things I owe, besides just networking with you, besides just learning about business, I got really intense in my personal habits, the gym, and what type of knowledge and what type of messages I would consume. I remember during those days, the months leading up to what we're going to call Judgment Day, I just spent every lunch, just eating in my truck, looking out over the lake. And I would listen to the same thing where maybe you know about this. Steve Harvey gives a famous speech about how you have to jump. You know what
Yep.
we're talking about?
Yep.
We can post it in the links. That really resonated with me and it kind of got me fired up. So
100%.
I I kind of own that. And the very next day, I was buying a $17,000 trailer and an equipment supplier in Akron. So we were not just using that same old push power washer, we were making an investment.
Yeah.
At the time, I had a buddy who was from one of my old jobs working for me, and we were kind of splitting the job. I was paying him a commission. And that year, starting full time in May, we did 121.
It's pretty cool. Coming from
So,
nothing, like starting from scratch, you're able to do that, and like that revenue is like really solid in comparison to like, yeah, you're making a comfortable salary as an engineer, but you're able to say, hey, I can actually like influence my income and make an impact as opposed to just sign in, check, make sure that you're not getting fired, and then it's almost like maintaining mediocrity. That was my experience in corporate America. 'Cause
right.
we
Let's hear
have
about that.
because we have similar experiences here. I was in the sales side of things, but they in corporate sales they sell you on the dream of like, oh, unlimited commissions. It's like you can be your own boss. When in reality, you're just like a cog in the wheel in a huge corporation. So like I had accounts, but like in order to get more accounts to make more money, there's a lot of politics involved. There was a lot of luck and chance
Mhm.
involved too. Like, hey, this guy over here is making 250, $300,000 a year, but he's locked down these accounts for the last 20 years. And there's 1,000 people behind him in line to get it. So I was frustrated in the sense that like, oh, I will never be this guy because he's like 1 in 1,000 at this company with the account ownership and the politics in the company and all that stuff. So
Yeah, dangling the carrot is definitely plays a huge role, and then nepotism is huge as well. I've heard stories from some friends just throughout the interview process about being derailed,
yeah,
where they're put through the whole dog and pony show, and they do all that crap when they have, a nephew or somebody from church already lined up. So
that's
I guess
huge.
you can go in with the right intentions and all the messages you've been put from guidance counselors and schools. And I think you and I kind of came to very similar conclusions throughout our experience in that environment.
Yes. And I think too, like seeing you and me and other people, it changes that narrative that was fed into our brains from like day one. It's like, hey, study hard in school so you don't end up like you and me today. Because we were told by people who were in that professional white collar environment who had the college degree, who worked up in an organization, and they said, this is going to pay me and this is going to be my retirement and my safety net, which is not even a reality in today's world. So like it's
It's
almost like
not.
we were led to failure by people who are now in that boomer generation figuring out, hey, that's not all that's cracked up to be. I got to work as a 7-year-old. I got to work double jobs to pay for my own retirement. Yet our adult children are starting off on this madness. And like, there's a huge disconnect between people like you and me who are able to like see what's real and break free from that like matrix, as you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't speak more to that. I mean, that boomer generation, where they bought their homes at 50,000, they work construction to put themselves through college. Tell that to a millennial, tell that
And
to
they
a
have no
Gen Z
debt
kid now.
or cost of living is affordable for them off of their
And
salaries.
it always seems like they're the first ones to give you their opinion or unsolicited advice. I mean, I remember in my early days of entrepreneurship right till now, just being in certain situations. Maybe it was at a friend's family party and the dad made some like backhanded comments that I'm an engineer and what am I doing? And this can't be enough money. And almost kind of like, when people are passive aggressive and they say something, but it's not, it's ill intent, like, oh, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
another thing too is like, everybody's like with that mentality. They seem to be obsessed with asking what I do during the winters. Like I get people
Yeah.
don't understand that, but I feel like it's just this Puritan work ethic hustle culture that you always have to be busy running on the hamster wheel.
Yes.
For me, winters are very impactful. I don't just use the time to do video games or whatever time waste. I get very intentional with my habits. I kind of very antisocial, very locked in with the gym, and I use this time to really review what we've done the previous year in business, what our KPIs have been, where the sales have been, how we've done it, And a lot of times I'll take that data and take those learnings and I'll build out a plan for the coming year, which is what I've been in the middle of doing. And it's really an exciting time. And one thing I could speak to for a positive with the engineering background is I was trained by a university in these large companies to basically take a process, take something that somebody on a shop floor is doing. You could be building a widget, a valve, an airplane part, whatever, and you have to learn how to streamline that process, eliminate defects, make it more efficient and free of waste. One thing that's really big is Lean Six Sigma. Give it a little history lesson and coming from the Rust Belt. After World War II, our manufacturing was a powerhouse. We were king of the hill and we got a little bit complacent. Meanwhile, in Japan and Germany, those countries have been bombed to smithereens. So the economists, the industrialists had to rebuild from scratch. So you had some revolutionary figures, Ono, Shigeo, the Toyota production system kind of
Hmm.
set the gold standard. And and a lot of times in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we got our butts kicked. That's a lot of the Rust Belt decay because they had in Asia and Europe, they were learning for constant pursuit of defects or elimination of defects. I'm sorry. But what does this have to do with pressure washing? Well, okay, so you're taking something from a state. I could take this Xbox controller, I'm making it, and I learn how to insert the buttons. I learn how to, injection mold it. I'm documenting a process. I'm taking something from state A to state B to basically do activities that a customer pays for. So whether you have a home service business and you're in plumbing, HVAC, pressure washing, you name it, you're doing that. You just don't have a factory walls and ceiling over your head. So if you could kind of find how to implement those, I feel like that kind of gives me an edge, and it's a unique, I guess, angle that All Star Power Cleaning has over our competitions.
Yes. Yeah. It's like and again, this is kind of the value add of your background, your experience in the corporate world and your degree and your education and like how your mind was trained prior to this, where like you can see things that the normal pressure washer doesn't even understand or doesn't even know where to look. So like us, like with both of the corporate, like I have similar corporate experience with like understanding like how corporations and billion-dollar publicly traded companies operate. So it's like our own, like we were essentially trained in business or operations through these larger corporations, and now we're able to translate that in our entrepreneurial ventures like pressure washing. So that's kind of like a competitive edge that you and I both have, especially since we've like kind of, as to quote Elon, we've broken away from the mind virus of like that conformity of the matrix.
Absolutely. And I think that, again, everybody's on their own path. I think that people from our backgrounds, and there's a couple other people who we knew from our mastermind that are kind of on a similar trajectory. I feel like we kind of stand out and we don't embrace and again, I'm just shooting from the hip here, not trying to mislabel anything, but that blue collar, I work 80 hours a week. I have no holidays off. Must be
Yeah.
nice. And I feel like a lot of that mentality is just staying busy, where we look
Yeah.
at things and our goal is to be effective and to use tools.
Yeah.
Now, the great thing about business is I feel like you don't have a ceiling over your head. With engineering, I'd have a 60, 70, and $80,000 salary, decent, but okay income at that time. Today, that's going to be a little tough with the cost of living,
Hmm.
but I didn't see a lot of upside. Maybe one out of 20 people could be a department head, but there wasn't sales commissions, there wasn't incentivized KPIs. I feel like a lot of times the motivator was almost in the negative form that, we're going to keep you on your toes. I mean, some of these places I was at even had a little bit of a culture of toxicity,
Oh yeah.
excessive meetings in the boss's office with HR, the door is closed, little passive aggressive digs here and there. And I feel like that's really what they were trying to do is they didn't want to get people too comfortable. They wanted people to have what's called a healthy fear of losing your job. And
Yeah.
that's just not how I wanted to go through life. I don't want to be motivated by the negatives. I think somewhere along early on, um, I went out to lunch with a group of guys, older guys, and one guy said something like, "Oh, this is just how it is. This is what life is." And I that stuck with me. You had people experience conversations that stick. I think that really kind of rattled me up in my 25, 26-year-old self at the time.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to the boy who wanted to have adventures, who didn't want to sit still, who didn't want to be confined in a box with labels.
Oh yeah. And you think about it from like day one, because I have similar experiences with that. And I remember like, hey, I'll go online and I'll learn stuff that interests me. And I'll become like one of like I'll be like autistically engaged in one of these passion projects. However, like you sit me down in school and you say you need to read this, you need to write this report, and you need to think this way, and I'll be like, I'll do the bare minimum to get by. And corporate America was the same vibe to me. And then they try to fear you into, oh, like if you don't do a good job, you're gonna get fired or you're never gonna get promoted. And I was like, this is like the nonsense that I was battling in high school and college just to barely get through. And then I'd look around and people are dealing with this for the next 40 years of their life to live a mediocre life. So it's like, man, your escapism is like running a credit card debt like some of these people do and they try to keep up with the Joneses, or they're in alcohol, or they're in these activities that are just like outlets of escape to them because they have no freedom. And I think the the light for me was finding like entrepreneurship, where it's like I don't have a fear of failure. I have a fear of being like conformed and put in a box and told what to do. So like on even a bad day of entrepreneurship, or like a slower season where we don't have as much cash flow as we're used to, I don't have a fear of like, oh, I'm not gonna make it. I have a like it's I always related back to like you're saying those jobs in corporate America where there's like, why was this meeting put on my calendar today with no notice, and it's with like my boss in HR, and then them
Yeah,
trying
they
to
would
like bully me into some bullshit where I'm like, no, 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 no. Like
they would
it's so funny. Like a job is replaceable, but when you're in a job, corporate America thinks you're the one who's replaceable.
they would do that shit. I mean, they would put like they would have little charades, let's call
Yeah,
it. I mean, they would put a little sticky note on your desk to come see me, and it was about something dumb, something non-impactful that
yeah.
could have just been an email. Like, why did they have to do the sticky note? Is there some game or charade to this?
And I feel like you said, if they know they can't, they have to like create scarcity in the employee to keep them around when they can't keep up with market demand. It's
I
like,
feel like that
yeah, it's supply and demand. It's like, hey, in the real world, we can go out and hustle in our businesses and make more money. And then therefore we see, hey, we're able to like gamify the system. In that world where there's no game, there's no like direct reward system, they're having to create scarcity in us. So like we don't look around and say, oh man, like we just keep our blinders on and keep going forward.
it's funny, yeah. And I mean, I'm thankful that, in my early 30s, I was able to kind of find my path and not get
Yeah.
stuck into it. But I mean, in my 20s, I would just living for the weekend, living for Friday, trying to keep your head down. I was
Yeah.
partying a lot, probably more than I should.
Yeah.
I'm happily married right now, so those days are behind me. But it's um it's just that, to your point about, the mediocrity and the labels. I feel like a lot of society kind of funnels people on that path. What I might say might even be counterintuitive, and I have this conversation all the time that, going to college, law of averages, you're probably gonna be better. I'm not anti-college. You need people with college, you need the engineers, the doctors, like
Yeah.
all those things. But I almost feel like when you grow up and you're on that path, if you're kind of there by accident, you may have a disadvantage with the golden handcuffs on you because you're on that treadmill, and it's a lot harder to get off once that belt starts. I mean, some of the big dogs and the real ones I know are the ones that kind of came from nothing, from alcoholism, from abuse, from the projects, and they got that fight in them.
It's funny, I saw a Facebook group for pressure washing, and one of the guys who comments a lot, he said like, hey, I've noticed like the felon guys, or the guys that were like born again people, where they started out in a bad position and then they found like, oh wow, I can directly control my destiny, whether they're on the technician side or whether they're on the business owner side. Those are the ones that achieve the most because they
I
got
always
that
like,
dog in them.
yeah, that's right. I always was drawn to the weird people, the people who maybe march to a little bit different beat.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like when I was in those corporate companies, when I was around the engineers or other people, everything was very straight-laced. Like you had to be very politically correct in what you said. It was the white collar humor, like, Cleveland, we got all 4 seasons in a week. I'm living the dream. And I was like, and I would like talk to a lot of the people. I would talk to a lot of the operators, a lot of the maintenance people, like recovered addicts. I would talk to real people, and these people, like, they weren't inferior to people that just had a degree. Like, some of these people were very smart. They were very perceptive to how they saw the world.
Yeah, I think too. Like you have a different lens, so you're able to like see the world differently. It's
But
not
in
as
some, yeah,
beaten
one
into.
thing I'm going to grab, one thing that stood out, I didn't finish this whole book. This guy was an investor, or he was into hedge funds, Ray Dalio. He has a book called The Principles of, it's not even on the freaking page, but it's called his Principles. And I read a few chapters, and he said something along the lines of, like, having a excellent, spectacular life was the goal, but he'd rather face tragedy and catastrophe than mediocrity. And that stood out, just kind of recalibrating your brain when you've had years and years of institutional, being on the treadmill, being in the safe path, being afraid of what's on the other side, and kind of have that tipping point where you're going to proceed to seek more opportunity. Like, that really stood out.
Yeah, I think that's cool. That's like the humanity and the spirit of us inside, and it's almost like I feel like we look at our country, and our country's been so used to that treadmill where we just conform to whatever we're told to doing. So like the mentality of like breaking free, doing our own thing. Like, sure, there's people that are like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur because it's cool to do because I don't want to work for anybody else. But in reality, it's like, hey, how far and how fast do you want to run? Like the baton is in your hands. It's up to you to decide your own destiny. And like that spirit is what's great about America, and that's what like I resonate with you about, especially because we come from a place of like the success that we were told from day one. It didn't align with our core values.
It's just funny. I mean, we know with like the election and everything, I think we're seeing a major culture shift. So, kind of to your point about America, we didn't start off as like a nation of conformity. We were rebels. We stood up against an empire with all odds against us.
Yes.
Washington crossed the Delaware in the middle of a smallpox epidemic. So we had that. We had the manifest destiny, the Louisiana Purchase, basically going out with nothing but you could fit on a wagon and settling, just this virtuous pursuit, fighting 2 world wars, putting people on the moon. I mean, now, are we just divided? Are we sedated? I'm not trying to get completely off topic, but you look at all the conversation with like what's in our food and all the social
It's true.
media and all the crap that people are consuming, like people are kept down more in these like systems of mediocrity. Will we see, in your opinion, another renaissance or revolution? I do think a couple takeaways. I do think the Gen Z, they are rebellious to this. They see through the lens that
Yeah.
this boomer driven 8 to 5, especially with what their cost of education and housing is getting out, isn't going to work.
Correct.
Are they going to lead the next charge? And then you have to also decipher, in the age of the internet, there is so much bullshit. There is so much smut out there about what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
For every
It's
person who's actually doing it, you have some guy who's borrowing his neighbor's Lamborghini talking about drop shipping for Amazon or some
yeah,
crypto
yeah.
or stupid.
A $1,200 Toro rental for the day, and then
Right.
standing in front of somebody's house,
Hmm.
and then yeah, it is a form of like mental masturbation and escapism. I feel like for a lot of people,
It
uh,
is.
and then that's no good. But again, like I think that like we're in like a revolutionary time of like breaking out of the like knowledge lapse because like with the internet, like you said, like I figured out how to do all of this based upon the internet. Like nobody was there to hold my hand, and it's probably the similar situation to you, where like we were able to go online, connect with people online, learn from YouTube videos, and like build these businesses, build these like six-figure plus businesses off of what we're able to learn purely off of the internet. So
And yeah, there's so much more to it. The internet, like, obviously right then you have to learn processes. You need to learn that you don't just blast siding with a pressure washer, you downstream or soft wash,
yeah,
all the things you have to worry about, new concrete can etch. But that's the top layer of the onion. And a lot of times in passing, people are like, oh, hire Bob. He's just the best power washer. Well, that's like that is only the tip of the iceberg because if you want to get bigger at this game, it's just taught me to be so much more effective, like learning about how AI is utilized in marketing and web presence and how what you have to do with technology to put a platform online higher to Google and how that converts to more revenue, learning the KPIs of a business, learning leadership and culture, learning how to incentivize somebody, how to find good talent, how to build a team. I mean, just these past 4 years have changed me a lot for the better. Starting out, I just didn't want to be scanning a badge to have somebody watching over me and telling me when I could or couldn't travel. But now I feel like if you have the opportunity to build a culture and lead people and have somebody be able to give their kids presents for Christmas and their birthday, it makes you a better person. And learning all these things, I feel like in the pursuit of skills and value, I feel like we have so much more value to give to the marketplace than if we're standing in a box and just following the systems and kissing up to management. As a small business owner, it's sink or swim, and you
Yes.
really have to find a way to be tip of the spear. And not that I'm saying this, but hypothetically, I feel like if we were to reapply or rewrite our resumes, I really feel like this experience as defined gives us a lot more value to make bigger leaps.
I fully agree. I think if somebody say like you said there was a gun to your head, something happened and you had to create that resume again. I think somebody would in a leadership position would say, "Hey, this guy knows how to run a business. I want him on my team." It's like we can teach him the technical. With AI nowadays, I can use ChatGPT to like figure out technical information. It's like what are you going to do with that? That's going to differentiate yourself from the guy next to you in the cubicle. Or like
Absolutely.
your mindset and how you're going to go about a problem or how you're even going to think about a problem. Like they don't teach you any of that stuff in corporate world because they want to keep all that knowledge and control down because that's almost like back in the day. You look at like the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, or like the Pope. Those were the people that understood and read Latin so they could keep the people in conformity. And it's almost the
Yeah,
same
I
in
mean,
corporate America today, where it's like, hey, look, that's above your pay grade. We're going to compartmentalize you. We're going to keep everybody tiered away so they don't understand like the big picture. And us having a business, we're forced to work in that big picture and we're forced to be involved in everything. And then whether we're delegating it to other people or we're doing it ourselves, like we have our finger on the pulse. And that's a skill that most people don't have because they're all in a box and they're compartmentalized and they're not told to ask questions. Because if you ask
right.
questions, you're rocking the boat. And in corporate America, that's how you get fired.
Exactly. They want yes men. And I think just, what we're discussing is the core of this. It's something I'm really passionate about. I kind of see the problem statement. And if I'm thinking about working towards something bigger than buying more trucks and having a better brand and the bragging rights and the vacations and buying more guns and toys and all that, I really want, this journey of mine to be about a legacy, to be able to kind of share some with this with somebody who else may be disenfranchised, that there is a way to kind of normalize some of these boomer set stigmas where they look down on blue collar, on labor, and even people within my company. One thing that, let me see, I have this copy right here. This is worth a mention.
Yeah.
I really want to dive in. You may be familiar with Tommy Mello.
Oh yeah.
This is a good dude right here. You got to listen to him, talking about how you build a business where everybody wins. So, one thing I think we're really going to dive into for 2025 is just the incentive pay and getting the right people on the boat. So, I think you want to get good people. Your people are your investment. And Tommy said something that stuck with me. I listened to Audible of that you need to build your dreams so big that everybody else under you's dreams can fit in you,
Yeah. I agree
in
with
your
that.
dream.
Well, and then one thing that I noticed in my business is like I have a guy who's like my lead essential like lead tech and then I pick up some guys here and there in the busier seasons. And I feed him in the slower seasons and then even in the busy season like it's an incentive based pay from like hey this is the number we're going to hit together and he's a great guy, college educated guy, similar mindset to you and me and like this is his jump out of like the corporate America as well, and I'm able to pay him like more than he was making in another position because hey, we're both on that same, we're in the same boat together, we're rowing together. Like you're more
Mhm.
technical, you're in the field, but it's my job to hunt and try to grow this business so I'm able to feed you. And I think to like the Tommy Mello's point is like, hey, you're going to give your employees a dream, like a better job, a better culture that they didn't have before. And then it's going to force you to kind of level up and get more work so you can support that.
And it's kind of funny where like there's the differential of balance, with like what we're talking about in small business, how we want our people to make more. We want our people to win. We're not trying to keep our people scarce. We're not trying to set up meetings with the HR director.
Yes.
So to instill that these people could just have a job. I mean, it is competitive finding good people. Wages have gone up, inflation, so you can't just rely on somebody that you're going to send to a
Yes.
multi-million dollar house with a $60,000 capital asset and think that you're going to pay somebody fry turning wages and that they're going to, give your company 5-star reviews. That's something that I think professionalism is really big. A lot of our clients, they're women home during the daytime hours, so certain things, certain hygiene, certain language people may say, everything matters, and any
Yes.
consequence of that, it's not felt by the employee, it's felt by the brand.
Exactly. And two, I think this is because I know like this podcast is like brand up your business. And this is what we really mean by branding. It's like our journey, our story, like how we treat our employees, like the vision we have for our company. So we've been talking for 40 minutes. We hadn't talked about our logo. We hadn't talked about our
Yeah,
SEO strategy. We're talking about like what truly is the brand. And that's that emotional connection because it's like the authenticity of ourselves spread to our customers and to our marketplace. And so
yeah,
it's like people mistake all the depth of what we've been speaking with as like, oh, that's nothing. Like, what's the logo look like? What colors do I need? Like, what wrap should I put on my truck? And they miss
yeah.
the entire point of like what we've been talking about. It's like, hey, this is like why we care. This is why we do what we do. This is like who we are as people.
I love that stuff, going into it. I had and I don't know if you're going to put images on when this gets up, but I had the logo designed by a guy on Upwork.
Yep.
It cost me not a lot, but I wanted to stand out. I didn't want to just get the generic logo of the two roof peaks with the window and the wall we see every new company getting. But
Yep.
I kind of came up with the all-star. I couldn't think of another term for it. You think of this old school adage like, oh, have an A, it's the front of the phone book. But I came with it. I like the logo. That was the logo for a while. Color scheme, I like the true red, true blue, sky blue. And we really took our brand to the whole nother level this past season.
Mm-hmm.
So going into 2024, I was relying on my 2023 guy coming back, and he was a great guy, great asset. I bought a new F-150. We were gonna take my truck and wrap that. And I worked with the company an hour away. They were just awesome, so enthusiastic and engaging. I got the text from my guy, he wasn't coming back, and I remember it just felt like a breakup almost. But
Yep.
luckily I was able to find Cody through Indeed. He came late February, and I just knew talking to the guy, he was the all-star power cleaning material. And he worked with me the entire season, just awesome guy. I remember late March just seeing this wrap of this truck. We had AI help design a mascot this year,
It's
a
cool.
golden retriever. I have a golden. It's,
Yeah.
a big
And
part
for
of my life.
anybody that doesn't know, Bob, like every time I see him, even in the back of your video over here, I see your little golden retriever walking around. So,
Yeah, exactly. And that's just that mascot. I went through so many iterations, got the base thing of AI. The artist Michaela at the rap place doctored him
yep.
to look more authentic, and I think it's awesome. So, how our brand looks, the truck, we have a whole skid unit in the back. 100-gallon buffer tank. I feel like with the area of the we're in, we typically have sufficient water pressure, so I don't really need those like large, dual axle 500-gallon
Yeah,
tanks. We
that's
got this like
overkill. Yeah.
we got this lean, fast F-150. It just looks kick-ass with the wrap and the soft wash. So
Oh
we
yeah.
had that unit this year as well as my trailer. Um, moving into the new year. Something that may still be kind of tight to my chest because it is a strategy. I think we are going to continue our brand. I think our strategy is going to be better utilizing what we have, and we want to focus more on some of the recurring services, the window cleaning, the holiday lighting, just the detailed stuff. Like people think of window cleaning as, oh, you just need Windex and paper towels. Well, if you're doing it on a professional level and you spend any time to learn how to maneuver a squeegee and all the different types of windows, there is so much. So I feel like we really want to transform our brand. We're a very detailed company. We're the exclusive the Platinum Club company. We work with very affluent customers. We're not the $99 guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've noticed some of the pictures you posted. You do some like mansions on the lake, don't you?
yeah, we do. Yeah, we have some very affluent people, some notable people in the community, some big time entrepreneurs, CEOs. We've had the privilege of actually, it was a small job, but believe it or not, we did a job for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And if you've ever been to Cleveland, it's a landmark. It's this pyramid looking building that was built in the 90s.
Super cool.
We we did work cleaning up after food trucks. So one of the cool things, especially this past season, is using the Mavic drone and the, GoPro. I've just been getting a buttload of content.
Oh yeah.
And one thing about how I work and what's different is I wake up early in the morning and my brain is racing. I'm just a caffeine addict. And I'll go to town, kind of working with our SEO company, adding content. We have a separate web page built out for every community we work in. For those who are familiar with Cleveland, Rocky River is a big one, Westlake, Avon Lake. I want to say we have 30 community page, and all the content on those pages is work that we have done in said city. So it's not, just your typical, generic. I'm sure you've seen the guy with electric power washer with overhauls blasting bricks. We're not using any of
Yeah.
that garbage.
Exactly.
And then making YouTube videos with the epic music in the background, kind of like showcasing the city and intro, flying into the city. Here's the landmarks. Here's what we do. So I really take a lot of pride in storytelling in my business.
Hmm.
And it's, we're constantly trying to get better. There's some activities I can't speak to everything because, it is a very competitive market and it's sink or swim.
Exactly. And that's the thing too about like sales, marketing, branding. Like, yeah, you can tell people like what direction, but make sure to keep something for yourself. Because like in this business, like if somebody hears you're doing this one thing, they're gonna copy you, and then it's gonna like dilute your brand and dilute their brand. So it's always like I'll tell people like, hey, this is what I've done, but like what like I'm thinking about doing, I'm kind of like, hey, this may be the direction I'm going, but I'm not going to be like, this is the exact secret to follow. And then, like, in the pressure washing scene, everybody's copy pasting each other. So it's almost good to like, hey, keep that creativity to yourself. And then they can copy you once you hit the market, but don't be like telling all your secrets away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is some top secret war room activities, especially this time of year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Some things I can share, some things just have to keep up my sleeve. I can't show all my aces right now, but
Yep.
let's talk for a minute about customer avatar. I think your business, Matt the Driveway Guy, I've seen your brand, your raps, your videos, and I think we can kind of agree in unison to this. A lot of people getting into it are worried about racing to the bottom and this person undercutting this price. And I think you're going to agree with me that your value customers are often your worst customers. So
Oh, 100%.
why don't you kind of lead the way? What do you do to kind of reach out? Like, what is your customer avatar and how do you try to seek those people and align your brand with that avatar?
I'd say it's probably similar to your avatar. My avatar is going to be somebody that can find me, like whether it's social media, whether it's Google, somebody who's like tech enough where it's not like, hey, I'm going off of a yard sign, or oh, I hear through my mom's friend that you pressure wash. It's like I want somebody who's already like landed upon my brand from social media or like word of mouth, and then they've seen it from there. Something where there's value. It isn't like, oh, you pressure wash, like how much? Like the conversations I get where they're like, how much is it to pressure wash my house? Usually that's not the best customer because like you said, they're value driven. They're going off of price. I want somebody who's like, hey,
Right.
I follow you on social media. Like I see your wrap trucks in our neighborhood. Oh, my neighbor said you did a great job. Like I'd like to have you do my house. And then like it's one of those like you want somebody to look for you via like value first. And say if we're going to go off of a demographic, I'd say that our average job is $700,000 to like $1 million plus
Mhm.
like household. And we keep the constraints of that through like pricing because like we're gonna say, hey, we have a set minimum price of say like $350. And
Right.
there's certain times where I'm like, hey, if I can tell in the first couple of text or interactions with people, if it's not the best fit, I'll just refer somebody else. I'll be like, hey,
Yeah.
look, I don't really want to tarnish our brand and tarnish our like waste time with our employees and stuff like this by like chasing somebody I can already tell is going to be like a Karen and like hyper
Mhm.
picky and they're not going to leave that Google review and all that stuff. Some of my
We've all
best
had
customers,
that.
they're like, I see you have all these Google reviews. Yes.
Mhm.
They're not a value driven person because I think if they look at your website and they see you're professional and you got wrap trucks with 6 figures worth of investment, they're going to know off the bat that you're not cheap.
Right. And I think, some of my best customers, to your point, they've taken the time, they've found our website, they've read my bio. One lady stands out. She's like, I read your review and I said, please, please, please come to my community. And, she
There
was
you go.
great inviting my wife and I to her church. And like, you get to meet all different types of people for better or worse. I mean, some of my clients
Exactly.
I've even had friendships with, some of my clients have been advocates for us.
Uh,
And, you do have to learn some of that conflict management. No matter what you do, you're always going to have somebody who may ask a certain amount of questions or have some not so pleasant feedback. And admittedly, this is probably an area where I need personal growth. I mean, there were some times, even last year, just some of the questions, some of the BS, like my patience was really spread thin. So
I hear you.
I think I want somebody who can be an office manager and kind of be
Hmm.
that focal point of contact,
Yes.
where that's their job to kind of build that out as a system. That's one of our directives for the year.
Yeah. I know I have a virtual assistant that helps me out. And yeah, there's certain things that need to be escalated ultimately to me. But if I know it's like, hey, this person's calling and we need to go back and it's a callback, I'll have him reach out and I'll keep that interaction between like him and them. That way it saves like my emotional margin for the day. Where it's not like
Right.
we're going back and forth and somebody just needs to call them and say, "Hey, look, I'm listening to you. You're right. We'll be out on this day." And you're like the problem that we may have caused, like there's a solution for it and here's our action plan. It's like
Mhm.
we don't need to like be thinking about it all day long and being drained off of that. That is a let's see. That's something my internet just cut out. Are you good?
I'm good. I could hear you. You were frozen. I was just moving around. I'm
Okay, yeah.
good.
Yeah, give me a second.
Let's see. We're all good. Let's get things back up.
Uh, but yeah, if you can hear me, I still talk. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's
I
kind
could
of the
hear
same
you.
boat as you.
Yeah, I mean, that's stuff is going to go wrong. I mean, we have all of our SOPs and processes and all that engineering stuff, but it's law of averages. And a lot of times I think it's a test how you handle it. Some stuff may not even be your fault. I mean, I've had soft wash brick and the maroon shutters turn green, and just so happens, again, I don't want to. I'm trying to say this because I'm not airing out other people's dirty laundry. Um, we were able to get the customer fixed up. It's just one of those things people have to be on the lookout for some of the paints to market with the VOC regs,
Yeah,
but they really appreciate that. But I mean, you will deal with difficult people. I think sometimes people on the front end, sometimes people could be, if they're really ravenous with the amount of like questions, it could go either way. We've had some of our clients that were burned by the big competitors that loved us,
yeah.
but I don't know. We've had other people that have just not been happy no matter what you do, and you're going to have that.
Yeah, I hear you there. Yeah, my video's out, but I can still talk.
Yeah, we'll still go with it. I mean, I don't see a reason to stop.
The yeah, so I guess I found too, like, you have a good, like, your journey, like, you have a good story behind your brand, and then, like, similar to me, it's like you found what is your, like, authentic self, and then, like, you have, like, your dog, your family, like, you care about the community, like, you're educated, and, like, I think that resonates through your brand as it does ours. So you're going to get a certain clientele that's attracted to that. Like you won't get as many people as say you're like the $99 guy, but you'll get those right people that you really want to do business with.
Right, and you'll get the sticking point. And I do things. I try to be the personal family-run service. We're part of the community. We're not run by a private equity. We're not just sales driven. Without saying their names, we have several very large companies that I know one of which got bought by private equity and now they're franchised and they're just like they have this gorilla sized marketing budget. So
Yeah.
trying to come in at an angle and compete with be the David to the Goliath marketing budget, it
Hmm.
really lends itself to having to shift to that client who's looking for somebody that they know on a personal basis where they can get in touch with leadership where we could give them more solutions and solve more problems than a one size fits all, just siding, roof, and driveway wash. We can clean your windows, we could seal your pavers. We know a ton of other companies local. Oh, your basement's leaking. Well, you should talk to this guy. And I think that that's part of what sets us apart.
Yeah.
And to add to that, every Christmas, I'll send all my clients handwritten Christmas cards. It's a big task, but I think it really is part of the growing those seeds. One thing like looking at business success, I'll look at a map and it's almost like you're playing one of those like Monopoly or Command and Conquer games, and I look at neighborhoods and what do we do in these neighborhoods where we got, like, let's call them a gold standard customer that got us in there? How do we do that in these communities and what's our strategy? And you start to really think about things on that higher level.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, so I guess we could probably talk for hours about this stuff. What would you say was like some of the most important branding and marketing things that you've done to like really separate your company and grow to the business you guys are today?
I would say the additional services, being able to solve multiple problems with one phone call, like doing some of these services, I understand why the larger companies don't take them on, just because it's more risk, there's more weather dependency, but kind of being more of that customizable, detail-oriented company has opened us up to some of the target neighborhoods we want to get into. And just having that unique brand, having the mascot, the colors, the wrap, just having that, what's the word, brand congruence or brand continuity. The corporate talks about that, between the Facebook,
Oh yeah.
the Google ads, everything, just being able to be recognized. I mean, I just posted randomly a picture of our truck in a golden retriever meetup job and got a job out of that.
That's cool. Yeah. Do you attract a lot of dog people?
Yes and no. I mean, some people really resonate with that. A lot of people, most people have dogs. Some people are
Hmm.
all about the golden retrievers. If somebody has a personal interest and you ask them about that, it makes people feel good. It's kind of like how to win friends and influence people, when you're talking to people and customers, get them talking about what they like.
Right.
We live in a culture where, myself included, your pets are your family. So people take a lot of pride in that, and, ask people about their cats and ask to hold them and have those like interactions that really builds a level of rapport. But then again, I mean, there's some people that just think it's cool and they're not as excited as you would hope somebody's excited about the brand. But, even one of my repeat customers lived on the street of a December job and she's like, oh, my son, he's asking about your wrap. He sees it. And, little stuff like that where you put a smile on people's face. Those are some of the small things that you take away from this.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. So I guess anything you would like to talk about when you're like to close this out?
I just think, I mean, for anybody listening, surround yourself by good people, follow your moral compass. You understand that you got to listen to that inner voice in you, even if it's like pushing outside that comfort zone. Um, and imperfect action always beats no action at all. In engineering, you're taught to analyze everything, have the correct data. I've had projects I was working on that never went to the next floodgate just because more data, more data, more data. So I think don't be afraid to just go take action. And this is not just for business. This is anybody, whether you want to do sports or theater, or you just want to live truly, be your authentic self. Just don't give a fuck about anything anybody else is going to say. Just do you.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
But
Yeah. I mean, that's a good close. I can clip that thing up. It's like, don't give a
all
fuck
right,
about what
good
everybody
deal.
else
Maybe
says.
awesome. Are we going to chat for a couple of minutes offline after we're done
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the?
What I'll do, I'll just cut the recording and then I'll see if I can get my online. I'll just zoom you back and see if I can just call you through my webcam.
All right, good deal. So you want me to click on a new link then?
Yeah, I'll give you a new link in a second. So
You
I'll
got
wrap
it,
this.
man. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll wrap this thing up.
All right. Well, appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate you being on.